although I didn't anticipate what my future might look like, I knew I wanted one. Within our community is about burying it and hiding it. I sadly know of awful stories of a widow who's committed suicide. I've reached out to a charity that supported young widows. They're called Widowed and Young.
Hi, welcome to Changing Suits. My name's Bal.
And my name's Taj.
This week, we're going to be continuing the journey of Rammi, who discussed her journey of how she lost her husband. This week, we want to cover her story after the funeral and what her life was, being a young widow. So, Rammi, talk us through. We had a bit of a description of what happened at the funeral. Where are you? What's going on in your head at this point?
I think after the funeral, I was pretty messed up. I think I always describe it as, I think the thing I did, healthy or not, was run away from my grief. Literally, because I went to Canada, I went to Dubai, wherever I could find international friends.
So you literally did the running away.
I literally ran away. Things with his family, we'd broken ties, but lo and behold, when I came back from Canada, I went to Canada because Ty was Canadian born. I think I explained that. He was born in Toronto. He came to the UK when he was 5. So I just felt, and I had a family there. We'd holidayed there many times. It was a very natural place to go to. But I came back and his parents had written a letter via a lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah. They were contesting Ty's will.
Oh.
Which I hadn't even thought of second look at. We'd both written a will when we were like 24. Well, no, we would have been 20 in our first year of marriage, because he worked for Marie Curie and they offered us a free will writing service. So it's literally something we wrote, filed away, didn't think about, but we did have one because it's just what we did. They tried to argue all types of stuff, accusations of him not being of sane mind when he made his will. Little did they know that we'd made it many years before his illness.
Oh, wow. Okay, so sorry, this is a bit of a turn in the story.
I
had no idea we were going to be talking about.
No, this is where I'm talking about, like, in terms of tensions with his family. Like, it got way worse before it got better.
So you did. Yeah. Okay, so you had contact with them. Obviously, you had tensions prior to this.
The only contact I had was through my sister-in-law. I wasn't really talking to them, but I was in contact with my sister-in-law.
And what happened from there? But obviously, you said that you made the will earlier.
Why did they do it? I'm sorry. I
can't tell. So anything I'm telling you, as you guys know, you hear different stories from different people. I can only tell you from my perspective.
Yeah,
I don't know their motivations. In terms of legalities, they might dispute what I'm saying, but I can only tell you from the black and white I read, my interpretation, and where I am today. And
it's all right, Rammi. We'll get them on next week. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Doing it. But things happen. I won't swear, but
what was going on in your mind when you saw this? You're like, okay,
anger.
Husband.
You'd think, okay, we weren't very. At this point, we weren't best of friends. That maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was shocked. But here again, my family, my dad especially, just went into overdrive, protective mode, and he said something to one of Ty's brother-in-law's sister's husband, who they were divorced, and the brother-in-law had said to my dad, like, whatever you do, protect your daughter. But all I remember, it was in a funeral car, my dad said, when Ty was alive, it was all about him, even over me, right? It was all about him. But now he's gone, it's all about my daughter. And that was what happened. I didn't have to do anything. Lawyers were found, things were sorted. I had a meeting with a lawyer, and they wrote some scary, intimidating letters on my behalf. And I never heard of them again. I never heard from his parents again.
Oh, wow. Okay. So have you not?
It's horrible.
Even up to now then. So it's been 5 years. Have you heard again from them?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But in a way, it feels like it's better that it was cut and over with them, because it doesn't sound like it was a good relationship anyway.
Yeah, sad. It didn't feel like that in all the 3 years, and it certainly wasn't like that when we were dating and when we like they were the best, and I was just like so happy. If anything, 'cause they were quite liberal and like my parents were quite strict, and it wasn't always bad. It's definitely the illness and everything else after.
Do you think it might? But then you might not be able to answer this. Do you think it was almost like they needed to blame someone?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I mean, we'll never know, but it's just something maybe.
Yeah, they said horrible things, like things that to do with at least to my face. They said at least you have your life. You should never be allowed to live in peace. Yeah, it should have been you, not our son. Yeah,
I'm sorry. That's
yeah.
Was that
They
actually
said it
said?
all. They said it all. Like people were capable of such hate.
So, and at what point would they have said this? Just before Tyrone had
During
shot?
like those difficult terminal weeks,
Okay.
5 weeks.
It was like they were. It sounds like they were bitter towards you.
So bitter, so consumed by their grief, but still they had this sense of like real anger at the situation, I guess, more than me. Yeah, it's anger. But the money thing was interesting because it's like you're so angry, but yet you're so calculated and controlled in terms of how you're approaching this. Like how angry, I didn't know anger can manifest in a quite controlled way as well. Like it was coming through I was scared, not for my safety or anything, but like I was scared for my future because I didn't know it's not possible what they were saying in their letters. Like a lawyer said, what is complete rubbish. Like they have no legal ground standing whatsoever. But I didn't know that.
Okay. So you've gone through this. You've got through the other side of it because obviously it had no legal standing.
Yeah.
Where are you? You've done your traveling. You've literally run away. You've come back and had to deal with this unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about your own life and how you go forward?
I'm thinking very clearly, actually, which might surprise some people. This is where, like, I know Raj and our story is quite similar. Although I didn't anticipate what my future might look like, I knew I wanted one. I knew I've definitely gone full circle. I've done the grief journey a little bit, and I know I'm not through it even still, but I've done the first work that I deserved to live. I'd made my mind up quite early on that,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not going for Tyrone's memory, his legacy, but more than that, for my own future, going to give up as I could have. Because in the very early days, I could have. I was drinking, I was doing things that I'm not proud of, but it was just like numbing my senses, I suppose. But I was very like focused on some type of direction of a positive forward step, one foot in front of the other. Like I didn't really know any other way about. I didn't want to cry in the room. I didn't want to. So the first thing I started doing was busying myself trying to sell the house. I thought I wanted a fresh start. I didn't throw his things away. I boxed them all up, but at least I was just like getting through I was like project managing my grief. I was like, I'm going to do this today. Tomorrow I'm giving myself little tasks. And death admin is a thing. It is consuming it, the probate, it's like we had 10 years of marriage. I had to tidy things up financially, legally. It was complicated.
Do you think that's a good thing? I mean, we've had this discussion with a grief coach in regards to keeping yourself busy. Obviously, you don't want to tip over the other side and be just busy for the sake of being busy so you don't think about it. But at least if you're busy, it means that you sort of move on in your life for yourself.
It is. It's just moving. It's not. I think in hindsight now, I wish I had sat with my grief more.
Okay.
I learned to do that after some rash decisions, some not rash decisions. Nothing I regret.
Okay.
But things. So like the big part of my moving on was meeting somebody else. And I don't mind talking about that because that's another part of my life after loss and the biggest part.
Well, this is the thing. I think for us females, it is a case of what is next. I mean, what is it that you're after? Whether it's a career, whether it is a family, that is our lives, right? With anyone, even with men as well, it's exactly the same thing. How long?
Do you know what it is? Like, I think for me, because of what I was going through with my in-laws, I was a bit scared. Like, I don't know what I was scared of, like when you think about it, but
Judgment, maybe, of moving on.
yeah, not even. But this is before I even met my partner.
Okay.
So like, what I craved from somebody I didn't probably recognize at the start was just a security and safety net, somebody to just look after me.
Which is
Um,
exactly
yeah,
what, this is why we get married, right? That security,
yeah.
right?
And
Isn't that what?
I hadn't had it really
Yeah.
because Ty was ill for so many years.
So you were the security in that case.
Yeah, honestly, I suppose that's what I wanted. I can analyze it a lot now, but when I was doing the doing, I guess I didn't know what I was entering into.
So let's enter the part before you found
Mm.
your next partner.
Hmm.
How was life? How were you carrying on? Was there any, was any community reactions, or was everyone just really supportive and trying to help you through it?
Everyone's really supportive. Everyone was really lovely. Um, I suppose people didn't. I was alone a lot though. Like I did, it was I didn't really have people to turn to. It's amazing how quickly people's lives just have to carry on. Um, maybe I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I didn't give a chance to tap into. I didn't really want to have to rely on people as well. I didn't want to be that widow, that lady, that one that people invite just because I don't know they feel sorry for her.
But I think this is the tough thing. Again, it goes back to the fact that we don't ever have these conversations. I
Yeah.
mean, you didn't know how to react in that situation. You don't want anyone to pity you in that case, it sounds like. And other people, I suppose, didn't know how to react to it either. It's such a hard situation for everybody, I would have
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, it is. And a lot of my friends were Ty's friends.
Hmm.
And like, I think I was a reminder of their grief as well. And they were struggling as well, especially as best friends. But they were there for me. To be fair, I think me moving on so quick was, I know they told me it was a reason why more people fell away quicker, I think, than I would have expected them to.
When you say quick, what does that mean? Because
Within,
we,
within 6 months, I'd met Jay, my current partner.
okay.
We hadn't got together, but I'd met him. um, and my regret or my thinking back is probably being so honest with people. I thought I probably should have just not told them, but I did. That I've met somebody. I even said, I know it's too quick. I know it's too soon. I know you're going to be shocked by this. Like I prefaced nearly every discussion by tackling the judgment head on.
Yeah.
But then what would have been your time frame? We're now looking
I
back.
don't know. I don't know. I don't know what would have been easier for other people either. But I
And is
constantly lived with it, and we're still living with it because basically our relationship coincides with my husband's passing, and that's like our beginning of our relationship, and it's a really difficult milestone. We don't celebrate us getting together, or whatever, because it's complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we did, and Our relationship was very like insular. It was just me and him because I couldn't really talk about it with people, though I told them, but nobody really wanted to meet him or asked to. But I didn't really care at that point about my extended circle. I only really cared about my mum, my dad, and my brother.
So when you say extended circle, so earlier you said your friends who were mutual with Tyrone, they fell away quickly, and I can see why. Obviously, the connection was also mainly Tyrone at first, and then you by default.
Yeah.
So I understand that. When you say extended, is that what
I
you
mean,
mean?
even
Those
my
friends?
friends, I had a few. Like I had a few only friends that I'd known, and my very best friend from high school, um, just couldn't believe it. Yet was saying to me things like, "Oh, but I want to meet him, but I'm not ready." But like it was complicated, mixed messages.
Why? Sorry, I'm sorry. Why would your best friend not be ready? Like
I don't know. I think
that's me being judgment. I'm like, excuse me.
well, I think it reminded her. She told me. I mean, I don't know. People said to me, "We don't understand how you can move on so quickly after losing the love of your life." Like I heard that from more than one person.
But then had those people that had said it also lost the love of their life? In which case,
No.
Okay, and I suppose that's the difference.
Yeah.
How can you put yourself in someone else's shoes and the feelings? I mean, I have no idea how you coped with the last days with Tyrone and what you went through.
I've got to say that what people have said to me in that first year was also the first year I lost my husband, but first year I met somebody. It's the most complicated, emotionally, I've got to say, traumatic journey outside the cancer, because I was definitely falling in love again, definitely had the feelings, yet hadn't fallen out of love with my late husband. Like I hadn't. I don't know if I still have.
It's been so hard for you.
Yeah. And the judgment on top of my own mind blown, like, right, is just double. So, like, I don't know how to explain if I don't know any other way, because it's just the way that happened to me. But for me, like, I felt more judgment with, I don't know, because I'm not a man, but I felt there was a bit more judgment as a female.
Why do you say that?
Because, like, I think even in my, like, aunts, uncles, they didn't really say anything, but it was mostly my friends' parents, like, from what I'd heard from my friends, like, oh, they're like, but in our culture, you're meant to mourn. I don't know. They didn't never give me a time frame, but apparently I'm just meant to show my mourning very visibly for a longer period of time. God, nobody knows how I was feeling on the inside, but at least I wasn't even demonstrating on the outside. But even if I hadn't met Jay, my current partner, I still wasn't going to show it visibly, physically on the outside. That's my grief is my grief.
I mean, and I say this. I'm trying to look at it on the other point from the other
A
side of
lot of
it.
people can see it from the other point of view.
No, I get it in regards to the time frame, but obviously where I'm sitting now, where we've heard the story and we're like, well, we've heard the emotion. We've all cried just in the podcast that you described. So it's slightly different. It's a really tough one, because time frame is, what is the time frame? No one's got an answer for that. I mean, had it happened 5 years later, would that have been okay? I don't know. It's a tough one, isn't
I
it?
think, perfect, to be honest, there's people who loved me who were just worried about me, right? My brother especially, and who I know has no judgment, who I know loves me unconditionally. So therefore, he had an issue as well, but therefore it had to be from a place of true, like, love. And he's okay now, but at the time it was kind of raw. He was incredibly close to Ty. He was younger. He looked up to my late husband, but it's had a profound effect on my, like, everyday since and now, because it's affected relationships of who I valued, who I love these people, like, and I say, nobody really hung around to give me the benefit of the doubt, or more, give
Do you
Jay
feel
the
that
benefit of the doubt.
people may have felt that you were cheating on his
Yeah,
memory?
I guess so.
Yeah.
I felt it, so therefore they must have felt these complex emotions. I can't say I, was 100% comfortable with it, but there was a bigger part of me that wanted to be happy.
Do you think because you saw Tyrone go so quickly, again, I might be putting words in your mouth, that you value life, that you don't know when something can happen, so quickly, and you need to just grab chances when you get them, because you don't know how long we've got on this planet.
It's the only way I can explain it. It's the
Yeah.
only way. I just thought life is so short. Like, I still do. It's just that I don't know. Like, the way Jay came into my life, it was an online dating thing. So basically, in my rash, also grief, created an online dating profile, thinking maybe there'll be other widowed men out there, like, just that I could relate to. Never in my wildest dreams. And I was basically about to delete my profile, and it was a certain type of website that I won't name, but it popped up a match for me, and I was like, I'm being crazy. Like, I hadn't matched with anybody else before for about a few months. I'm like, I'm just going to delete it.
But then this is the thing. I mean, prior to Tyrone passing away, one of the things that you mentioned was, what's going to happen to me? And of
Yeah,
course, that's the thing. I mean, you're in panic mode. What is going to happen to my future? What am I going to do?
yeah.
And then afterwards, obviously, that had a big impact as to what your next decisions were.
But even people who panic and go into relationships quickly rebound ones. Like, even if you haven't lost a husband, like, things don't normally, like, sometimes it can work. Some can have many happy married years after, on a basis of a rebound, they can still, be very happy. I suppose, like for me, it was a case of like I didn't think it was a relationship material. I suppose I just thought, okay, I'm being wild, I'm being crazy, being carefree. Nobody needs to really know about this. But I knew very quickly into dating Jay, talking, that why would I let this go? Like, it was a point I could be like, cut it off, like just leave it. It's fine. You've had your crazy phase. Um, get back to being a good widow.
And what does well, that's the question. What does a good widow look like? Obviously,
Yeah.
it makes it a bit tougher if you are talking to someone else being, I don't know. That's a really tough question though. What is a good widow? Like, what do people expect?
Yeah, I don't know.
And then why are we asking that question? What do people expect?
Yeah.
That is true.
Again,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
going back to what people expect, and it should be how we're living our life.
And I know a lot. I know a lot about what widows think, because I am, part of my journey has been, I wanted to reach out to other widows, other than podcasts like this, more specialists like Look at Widow Community. I've reached out to a charity that supported young widows. They're called Widowed and Young, and the only national charity of its kind that support those who are widowed before the age of 51, male and female. And I looked at this charity and like, it looks amazing, but it doesn't really talk to me. I can't see visible those from ethnic minorities on their website. So I reached out to them, and they really amazingly asked me to come on board to help them with this work, and asked me to be a trustee last year. And I'm passionate about sharing my story, but also connecting with other widows so they could share theirs. Because being a young widow is incredibly lonely. It's isolating, unique journey.
What does that charity then aim to do? What is the purpose of it?
Essentially, it's a peer-to-peer support charity, so it helps other widows. So it's a community, really. But they also offer a support helpline. They offer financial, legal advice, and it's a community just to help other widows. It's not. I didn't connect with it in the first year when I became a widow. I didn't know about it, but it's something through my. Even though I've moved on, and there are many widows within that charity who have got second, third chapters, but you can. It doesn't take that widow experience away from you. And the other thing is, there are so many women that I've got amazing mates who basically have been through this journey, and some weren't even married and they lost their fiance or their partner, and it's just opened my eyes to this whole world that I would never have known about, and these amazing friendships.
How does it make you feel in knowing that this charity has actually not got many ethnic minorities on it? Where are these ethnic minority widows going? What's going on with them?
It's exactly why I asked to be a trustee, and why hopefully they agreed. Is I think they're falling through a safety net of this type of charity or any type of support. Even this, this process, this podcast is a really cathartic experience for me, and I feel there's so many women and men who could benefit just talking therapies, counselling, whatever you need. There's a lot within our communities about burying it and hiding it. I've spoken to so many Asian widows who have even more intense experience in terms of their in-laws, really messy situations, houses, how things are divided, how women are treated. I know widows who come from India, from Punjab, who don't really speak the language, and then they're widowed. And they came to marry, this is what their rishta was done here, like their life is here. They can't go back. There's no family for them. I'm trying to help as many women as I can. I sadly know of awful stories of a widow who's committed suicide because of judgment, because of what was being said, because she saw no way out, of this label. And I just don't want it to happen to any woman or man, young or otherwise, but especially for young, because that's what I connect with, right? That's my story.
So you've told us what you hope to achieve with this charity. How supportive have the charity have been to you of trying to reach out to ethnic minorities?
Yes, they're getting better. And I think that can only be through awareness raising, and women like me or men like me coming forward to share their story. Because I think they're doing the right things, but I think there's a real barrier in our community
And
to
trust me,
access services, right? To access support that they deserve.
well, it's the cultural barrier. Trying
Yeah.
to understand why you have problems with your in-laws, I suppose, is one of the massive ones that.
And the main thing is, like, why would you want to go talk to other widows? What do you mean? Like, forget that. You know, you've got us, or you don't need people like you. You've got us. We're your family. We'll look after you. We'll sort you out. And I think they can't. Your family, as much as they love you, they're not. They don't get they can't connect with that exact experience of what's happened. So I think these charities are critical. Like in any other arena, a child bereavement. I know charities to support mothers who sadly had stillbirth and all types of fertility things. There's accepted norm that it's okay to talk to people who've got a shared experience. So it should be just the same in this little world as well. Only through that shared experience of talking to others who've gone through it is that you're not alone. The thoughts you have aren't strange, aren't like it's all very natural. Even mine moving on, only after I've spoken to other women, like the same has happened to them because there's similarities to our journey. The anticipatory grief I spoke about, especially dealing with a cancer patient, being stripped of your marriage, being stripped of your relationship, somebody to confide in, not just the mental, emotional, but there is, I think we shy away from topics of like intimacy and what that means in marriage. And you can live a really happy, long life, maybe without it, in our parents' generation, but in our age group, it's harder. Having children, wanting children, that's all very natural stuff. And I felt validated, I think, after I've spoken to other widows who've gone through similar things to myself.
How does your partner feel about you still, I shouldn't quite say still, but still connecting with other widows and almost still living that journey and still grieving, to be honest?
He gets it.
Okay.
And it's only, I think, because it's part of my grief. And I've told him there's so many things that I'll never get over, maybe healing therapy and all of that. But this talking about my story is so important to me, and to help others is really something that I gain a lot from. And he knows, like, he didn't meet a conventional girl, right? So, I just think at this point in our lives, we're both 40 now. We get that we've had lives before, and it's just a mature approach. Talking about it with one another, talking about it with friends. And I've made so many new friends. And our biggest like miracle, obviously, is having our daughter. And that grief, like I know a lot of widow friends who lost their partner whilst they had children. And I never know what it would be like, I suppose, if I had that on top of my own grief, is to deal with my children's grief. I think I'm blessed I didn't have that. And it's just made me a better person since I've become a mother, and to being more in touch with my grief. Because I think, God forbid, if the worst happens to my daughter, like, I want her to know at least her mum spoke about it. I'm not ashamed of my story, and I wouldn't want any young woman to be ashamed of their past at all. These things happen.
Do you think your daughter's very young at the moment? Do you think you talk to her about what you've been through?
I don't need to. I've got them on podcasts, so I'll be playing them all to you.
That's a very good point, but she might have a few extra questions. Do you think you'd be, because again, it comes down to the fact that, we have this barrier. We haven't spoken to our parents openly about it. They've been fantastic because they've bubble wrapped us. But at what extent would you then bubble wrap your daughter, or would you be very open with her?
I want to be very open, which is, Jay and I, my partner and I, have had to have that conversation. It's his daughter as well. And that's my past, but he knows his past, my past. That's what makes us us, and therefore we share that with our children. And even, people might think, so I'm not married, but I've shared, so who I share my past with is something that's very personal to me. Some people, obviously there's social media and you can read about my story. I'm not embarrassed of it whatsoever. Now that's taken a journey, right? That's taken process, but I'm not. And it's quite easy to access. And I'm a trustee of a national charity that is very much about being a widow. But like I can still, like his parents. I was like, we could shy away, but I kind of tackled it head on that I'm a widow. This is my story. This is where I've come from. And I just, like, I needed not to hide it. I think that was really important to me to be authentic.
Okay, on that point, we hadn't touched on that. How? I mean, we don't know Jay's story and where he's from and what his stories before you met. But how did his family then take it that you were a widow?
Just really loving and kind. I mean, I think that's a testament to the great son they've raised. So is how he's been brought up. Just really gentle, never rush me into anything, and just, I mean, they don't on our little daughter, right? Because she's the only girl in their whole family. He's one of three brothers. So Jay's a divorcee, and he's got his own backstory as well. You can have him on a podcast. But we've got a story. We've got a life before where we are now, and I just think it makes us who we are, and we have a lot to share. I think maybe for his parents, they're just happy that he's settled and happy, and he got his opportunity to find a second chance as well. Yeah.
Can I ask? I mean, earlier on, it was very hard listening to the fact that there was judgment there, and you were finding that quite tough. I mean, it was quite clear whilst we've been talking that you're still maybe finding it tough.
Yeah.
How do you think you can move forward from? Because I felt, and I could be wrong about this, I felt like that was still there. There was still something niggling at you about that. How do you think you can move forward from that?
A hell of a lot of therapy is still needed on that front, I think. I think the falling and failing of relationships is the hardest fallout from my experience. I don't feel there's anything different I could have done, should have done. It's just the reality of the situation that I've lost people who I really loved and valued in my life. And it's now I've got a daughter, I've got a family. I'm like, oh, it's sad that I can't share that with some people I was really close to. But they will know where I am as well. Like, they obviously, there's something there, I guess, that they're happy to be away as well.
Would you reach out to them? Because obviously you went through that period, and whatever the judgment, wherever it came from, do you think you'd want to reach out to those people that might have judged you?
I have some have been polite, but I can tell that there's not more there anymore. Others, I think we're just platonic. That they're just, there's some people who've come back in my life for sure. There have been, and I'm glad they're there. But it's not the same level of relationship, and maybe that's just natural. That's just what's happened. And all I can say is I've just made so many more in the last 5 years. The connections I've made, they don't replace the old connections, but they're new relationships, new friendships, and I'm still exploring, like, where they might go. And when you're 40, friendships look different, feel different. Like, I'm at peace with that, I think. In my 20s, I needed to call someone my best friend. I certainly don't need that anymore.
Do you know what? I think most of us go through that regardless of what the
I
situation
think so. I'm hearing that a lot.
I think that's all to do with growing up and experiences and just, yeah.
Being comfortable with yourself, I guess. Rammi, as we come to the end of this podcast, you've really opened up to us, and we really do appreciate the fact that you have. From the South Asian perspective, what do you think we as a community need to change towards, I suppose, widows? What's your advice?
I think I think certain judgments are natural, and they're from a good place. But I think the only real way you can know how a person wants to be treated or perceived is to ask them, to hear them out, and then base your opinion on that. I think it's fine to have these preconceptions based on your upbringings, your culture. We've got to take the good with the bad. So I suppose we've got to think about everything our culture offers us. Overall, I think my family, my upbringing, my faith, my parents' faith has been a more positive thing than a negative thing. So, I know the whole theme that you talk about South Asian taboos, but I think I can offset that against being from a loving, warm Punjabi family overall, and that's something that's carried me through and is carrying me through. So it's fine, but I just think to ask the person, how they want to be treated or what their story is.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today, Rammi. And it's a tough subject, but you are raising so much awareness, and I wish you all the luck in the world with your charity work that you're doing and just life in general, I guess.
Thank you. You never know what's around the corner, but thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.